The roar of 50,000 voices from across the galaxy shook the crystalline dome of the Grand Colosseum, their cheers echoing through the bioluminescent architecture of Zephyria Prime like thunder, rolling across an endless sky. Champion Kaela Starwind stood at the center of the arena, her azure skin gleaming with perspiration as she raised her plasma blade toward the artificial suns overhead. Her pointed ears, longer and more elegant than any human's, twitched slightly as she absorbed the crowd's adulation, a century of victories culminating in this perfect moment. 100 victories. The arena's quantum announcer boomed, its voice translated simultaneously into the languages of dozens of species. Champion Kaela Starwind of ZEPHYRIA has achieved the impossible. Kaela allowed herself a small smile as her defeated opponent, a massive Rigelian warrior whose carapace still sparked from her plasma strikes, groaned and rolled onto his back in surrender. The tournament rules were simple. Combat continued until one fighter could no longer stand or yielded. No deaths were permitted, but everything else was fair game in the galactic community's most prestigious sporting event. "Another one bites the cosmic dust," she murmured to herself, deactivating her weapon and offering a respectful bow to her fallen adversary. The Rigelian managed a weak laugh from his position on the arena floor. "Next time, Starwind," he wheezed through his translator. "Next time I'll remember that you fight like a caffeinated meteor." Kaela helped him to his feet, genuinely fond of most of her regular opponents, despite their ongoing attempts to end her winning streak. The tournament circuit was like a traveling family of highly competitive warriors who spent their time trying to pulverize each other professionally, while sharing drinks and war stories afterward. She was already anticipating her post-victory meal, and perhaps a relaxing soak in the thermal pools when the arena's atmosphere suddenly shifted. The crowd's celebratory roar faded into confused murmurs, then an almost unnatural silence that made Kaela's combat instincts flare to attention. "Ladies, gentlemen, and non-binary entities of all species," the announcer's voice carried a note of barely concealed bewilderment. "We have received an unusual request to join today's competition." Kaela frowned, scanning the VIP boxes where tournament officials huddled in what appeared to be heated discussion. Spontaneous challenges weren't unheard of, but the timing seemed odd. She'd just broken the galactic record. What could possibly be important enough to interrupt her moment of triumph? The challenger represents the recently contacted species known as humans, the announcer continued, and the arena fell so quiet that Kaela could hear the hum of the energy shields protecting the audience. Humans. Kaela had heard of them, of course. The primitive species that had somehow stumbled into faster-than-light travel despite being barely past their nuclear age. Their homeworld was somewhere in an unremarkable spiral arm, and most galactic citizens considered them a curiosity at best, like watching particularly clever domesticated animals perform tricks. "This has got to be a joke," she muttered, but her amusement faded as she saw the arena's main entrance iris open. The human who walked onto the combat floor looked nothing like the savage barbarians described in the xenobiology reports. She was tall for her species, with dark hair pulled back in a practical ponytail and warm brown eyes that seemed to take in every detail of the arena with scientific interest. Her skin was a rich tan that spoke of time spent under natural starlight, and she moved with an easy confidence that seemed wildly inappropriate for someone about to face galactic-class opponents. Most striking of all, she wasn't wearing proper combat armor. Instead, she wore what appeared to be a simple gray jumpsuit and sturdy boots, with minimal protective padding and no visible weapons beyond a basic utility belt. The crowd's silence broke into scattered laughter and derisive comments in a dozen languages. Someone in the Andromedan section shouted something that roughly translated to, "Did they send their maintenance staff by mistake?" The human doctor, Elena Rodriguez, according to the hastily updated tournament roster, seemed completely unperturbed by the mockery. If anything, she appeared to be enjoying herself, waving cheerfully to the crowd as if she were at a neighborhood festival rather than the galaxy's most dangerous sporting event. Well, this should be interesting, Kaela said to herself, studying the newcomer with professional curiosity. In her century of competition, she'd learned to read opponents quickly, and something about this human didn't fit the expected pattern of overconfident amateurs who occasionally stumbled into the tournament. Elena approached the center of the arena where Kaela waited, her movement casual but purposeful. Up close, Kaela could see laugh lines around the human's eyes and a small scar on her chin that suggested she wasn't entirely unfamiliar with physical conflict. "Champion Starwind," Elena said with a slight accent that the universal translator rendered as vaguely musical. "I've watched recordings of your fights. Your technique is absolutely fascinating from an anthropological perspective." Kaela blinked in surprise. Most challengers opened with threats, boasts, or formal declarations of combat intent. She couldn't remember the last time someone had complimented her technique's anthropological significance. "Thank you," she replied uncertainly. "I take it you're the human representative." Dr. Elena Rodriguez, xenoanthropologist and apparently today's entertainment, Elena said with a self-deprecating grin. "I'm here to study alien combat cultures firsthand. Nothing beats participant observation for research data." "You do realize this isn't a scholarly symposium," Kaela pointed out. "The weapons are quite real, and the pain is definitely not simulated." "Oh, I'm counting on it," Elena said brightly. "How else am I going to understand the psychological and cultural factors that drive interspecies competition? Besides, I've been practicing." Before Kaela could ask exactly what kind of practice prepared someone for galactic tournament combat, the arena's challenge protocol activated. Elena was assigned her first opponent, a mid-tier Centaurian fighter known for his speed and precision with energy whips. "Good luck, human," Kaela said, meaning it. She'd grown fond of several species that had initially seemed overmatched in tournament play. "Thanks, champ," Elena replied with a casual wave. "See you in the finals." The sheer audacity of that statement should have been insulting, but something in Elena's tone made it sound more like a friendly prediction than arrogant boasting. Kaela found herself looking forward to seeing exactly how this unprecedented challenge would unfold. As Elena walked toward her starting position, she called back over her shoulder, "Oh, and Kaela. Nice ears. Very elegant." Kaela felt an unexpected warmth creep across her cheeks as she watched the human take her position. In all her years of competition, no one had ever complimented her ears with such casual sincerity. The opening bell chimed, and Dr. Elena Rodriguez's galactic tournament debut began with her opponent's energy whips crackling through the air toward her apparently defenseless form. What happened next made the entire arena fall silent once again, but for entirely different reasons than before. Elena Rodriguez moved like water flowing around stones, her body twisting and bending in ways that seemed to defy the basic physics of bipedal locomotion. The Centaurian's energy whips, which should have wrapped around her torso and delivered a paralyzing shock, instead cracked harmlessly through empty air as she slipped between them with an almost dancer-like fluidity. "What in the seven nebulae?" Kaela muttered from the sidelines, watching the human's unconventional evasion techniques with growing fascination. Elena's opponent, a seasoned fighter named Vexter who had won 3 previous tournaments, increased his attack frequency, sending multiple whip strikes in complex patterns designed to eliminate escape routes. Elena responded by dropping into what appeared to be some kind of ritualized crouch, then exploded forward in a rolling motion that brought her well inside Vexter's optimal striking distance. "Oh, that's just not fair," Elena said cheerfully as she somehow ended up behind the bewildered Centaurian. "Your whips work great at medium range, but you've got a blind spot about 2 meters directly behind your primary stance." Before Vexter could turn to face her, Elena had applied what she later described as a modified sleeper hold with cultural sensitivity adjustments that rendered the larger alien unconscious in approximately 3 seconds. The arena remained dead silent for a moment before exploding into chaos. Half the crowd was cheering, half was arguing about whether what they'd witnessed was legal, and the judges were frantically consulting rule books in 6 languages. Victory 2. The human challenger. The announcer declared with obvious uncertainty. Elena helped her defeated opponent to his feet as the medical team arrived, chatting amiably with Vexter as the Centaurian shook his head in confusion. "No offense, but your species' combat doctrine is way too predictable," Elena explained while medics checked the alien's vital signs. "You telegraph your moves about 3 seconds before you make them, and you rely too heavily on maintaining optimal weapon distance." "But how did you know?" Vexter asked, still dazed. "No one has ever gotten behind my guard like that." "Anthropological training," Elena said with a shrug. "I spent 2 years studying human martial arts before coming here. Turns out most of our fighting techniques evolved specifically to deal with larger, stronger opponents by exploiting psychological patterns and biomechanical limitations." Kaela found herself walking toward the human without conscious decision, drawn by a combination of professional curiosity and something else she couldn't quite identify. "That was unusual," she said as Elena approached the arena's rest area. "That's one word for it," Elena replied, accepting a hydration pack from a bemused tournament aide. "Your Centaurian friend there is a perfectly competent fighter, but he's been training in the same style for so long that he's developed predictable habits. Humans call it getting stuck in a rut. And humans don't get stuck in ruts." "Oh, we absolutely do," Elena said with a laugh. "The difference is that our ruts are usually so chaotic and self-contradictory that they're nearly impossible to predict. We call it organized confusion or creative destruction, depending on how philosophical you're feeling." Kaela tilted her head, a gesture she'd inherited from her species' evolutionary past. "You seem to have a lot of names for the same concept." "Welcome to human language," Elena said dryly. "We have 17 different words for snow and 43 ways to say confused, but we use the same word for both love and really enjoy pizza. It keeps things interesting." Despite herself, Kaela found herself smiling. There was something refreshingly direct about Elena's communication style that cut through the formal protocols Kaela had grown accustomed to in galactic society. "Speaking of interesting," Elena continued, settling onto a bench and gesturing for Kaela to join her, "I've been studying recordings of your fights. Your combat philosophy is fascinating. You blend Zephyrian tactical precision with what appears to be intuitive pattern recognition. Very sophisticated." Kaela felt that unexpected warmth again as she sat beside the human. "You can tell all that from watching recordings." "It's my job," Elena said simply. Xenoanthropology. The tournament's semifinals approached with an atmosphere of electric anticipation that had transformed the Grand Coliseum from a sporting venue into something resembling a galactic cultural phenomenon. Elena Rodriguez had dispatched 7 opponents using methods that defied conventional combat wisdom, while Kaela maintained her perfect record with the sort of technical precision that had made her legendary across 3 star systems. "I still can't believe she used interpretive dance to confuse a Andromedan warrior poet," Kaela said, reviewing holographic recordings of Elena's matches in her private training chamber. "How does that even work as a combat technique?" The footage showed Elena performing what appeared to be an elaborate artistic routine, while her opponent, trained in the ancient Andromedan tradition of battle verse, became increasingly frustrated with his inability to compose appropriate combat poetry in response to movements that had no clear tactical meaning. Dr. Rodriguez appears to excel at psychological manipulation through cultural disruption, her training AI observed helpfully. Her techniques exploit the gap between expected behavioral patterns and actual performance. She's turning their own expertise against them, Kaela mused, watching Elena somehow convince a Tao Session Crystal Blade master that they were engaged in a friendly philosophical debate rather than mortal combat. They're so focused on responding to familiar patterns that they can't adapt when she does something completely outside their experience. The door to her training chamber chimed, and Kaela looked up to see Elena herself standing in the entrance, holding 2 cups of what appeared to be steaming liquid. "Hope you don't mind the interruption," Elena said, offering one of the cups to Kaela. "I thought you might want to try actual human coffee before our match. Fair warning. It's nothing like that synthetic stuff they serve in the arena cafeteria." Kaela accepted the cup cautiously, inhaling the rich, complex aroma that rose from the dark liquid. "You brought me a beverage. Is this some kind of human pre-combat ritual?" "More like a peace offering," Elena said, settling onto a meditation cushion with the ease of someone comfortable in any environment. "I know my fighting style has been unconventional. I wanted to make sure you didn't think I was disrespecting the tournament or your achievements." "Disrespecting?" Kaela took a tentative sip of the coffee and felt her eyes widen at the explosion of flavors. "Elena, you've reinvented combat sports. Half the species here are already sending anthropologists to study human martial arts." "Really?" Elena looked genuinely pleased. "That's actually why I'm here. Well, partially. The other reason is that I wanted to understand your approach better before we face each other." Kaela settled beside Elena on her own cushion, noting how the human's presence seemed to calm the usual pre-match tension that had plagued her for decades. "What do you want to know?" "Everything," Elena said with characteristic directness. "Your species, your training, what drives you to maintain such an incredible winning streak. From an anthropological perspective, you're fascinating." "But only from an anthropological perspective?" Kaela found herself asking, surprised by her own boldness. Elena's cheeks colored slightly, and Kaela realized with a start that humans could blush just like Zephyrians. "Well, not only from that perspective," Elena admitted. "You're also brilliant, graceful, and you have the most expressive ears I've ever seen." Kaela's pointed ears twitched involuntarily, and she found herself laughing. "Expressive ears?" "They move when you're thinking," Elena explained, gesturing with her coffee cup. "Subtle little adjustments that reflect your emotional state. It's actually quite beautiful." The conversation that followed stretched into hours, meandering through topics ranging from Zephyrian meditation techniques to human theories about controlled chaos. Elena demonstrated what she called adaptive thinking exercises, while Kaela shared the mental disciplines that allowed her to predict opponent behavior with near-perfect accuracy. "Try this," Elena said, standing and moving into what appeared to be a loose fighting stance. "Don't think about technique or form. Just respond to what I do without planning your moves in advance." What followed was unlike any training session Kaela had experienced. Elena moved in seemingly random patterns, her attacks flowing into defensive positions that became offensive strikes without pause or predictable rhythm. Kaela found herself responding instinctively, her body moving faster than her mind could analyze the situation. "You're overthinking," Elena said gently, continuing her fluid movements. "Trust your instincts." For the first time in her adult life, Kaela stopped trying to solve combat like a puzzle and simply let herself move. The result was exhilarating, a perfect dance of action and reaction that felt more like artistic expression than fighting. "Now you're getting it," Elena said, her movements gradually slowing until they were simply standing facing each other, both breathing heavily. "See how much faster you can be when you're not trying to calculate every variable." That was. Kaela struggled to find words. "I've never experienced anything like that." "Humans call it flow state," Elena explained, settling back onto her cushion. "It's what happens when your conscious mind stops interfering with your body's natural capabilities." They sat in comfortable silence for a moment, the air between them charged with an energy that had nothing to do with combat training. Kaela found herself studying Elena's face, the intelligence in her dark eyes, the way she smiled even when she thought no one was watching, the small scar on her chin that somehow made her more beautiful rather than less. "Elena," Kaela said softly, "tomorrow we'll be facing each other in the championship match." "I know," Elena replied, her voice equally quiet. "I don't want either of us to hold back because of whatever this is between us." Elena leaned forward slightly, close enough that Kaela could smell the faint scent of coffee and something uniquely human on her skin. "Would it help if I promised that I'm going to give you the best fight of your career?" "It would," Kaela said, though what she really wanted was to ask Elena to promise that their connection would survive whatever happened in the arena. "Then you have my word," Elena said. "I'm going to bring everything I have tomorrow. You deserve nothing less than my absolute best effort." Kaela felt a warmth spread through her chest that had nothing to do with the coffee. "And you have mine, little warrior. I promise to show you exactly why I've held this title for so long." Elena's smile was radiant. "I'm counting on it, champion." As Elena stood to leave, she paused at the door of the training chamber. "Kaela, whatever happens tomorrow, I want you to know that meeting you has been the best part of this entire experience." Before Kaela could respond, Elena was gone, leaving behind the lingering scent of coffee and the promise of tomorrow's match. Kaela sat in her empty training chamber, touching her pointed ears self-consciously, and wondering when exactly her feelings for the human had shifted from professional respect to something much more complex and dangerous. "Yes, little warrior," she whispered to the empty room, the endearment feeling natural on her lips. "Meeting you has changed everything." The Grand Coliseum had never hosted an audience quite like the one that gathered for the championship match between Kaela Starwind and Elena Rodriguez. Representatives from dozens of worlds filled the crystalline galleries, while billions more watched through quantum-linked broadcasts that stretched across 3 spiral arms of the galaxy. The match had transcended sports to become a cultural event of unprecedented significance, the first time a human had reached the finals of galactic competition. In the blue corner, the announcer's voice resonated through bioacoustic systems designed to reach every sentient being in the arena, representing the Zephyrian Coalition and holding the longest active winning streak in tournament history. Champion Kaela Starwind. Kaela entered through the traditional champion's gate, her ceremonial armor gleaming under the artificial suns as the crowd erupted in appreciation. She had chosen to wear the full regalia of her office: plasma blade, energy shield, and the sort of advanced protective gear that had kept her alive through 100 victories. But as she moved toward the arena center, her attention wasn't on the cheering masses or the weight of expectation. Instead, she found herself looking for one particular face in the crowd. And in the red corner, representing the recently contacted world of Earth and achieving the most unprecedented tournament run in recorded history, Dr. Elena Rodriguez. Elena's entrance couldn't have been more different. She walked through the challenger's gate wearing the same simple gray jumpsuit she'd worn for every match, carrying no visible weapons and apparently protected by nothing more than confidence and whatever mysterious training had brought her this far. The crowd's reaction was mixed: wild enthusiasm from those who had become fans of her unconventional approach, skeptical murmurs from traditionalists who still couldn't believe a primitive human had reached the championship. Elena caught Kaela's eye across the arena and offered a small wave, her expression somewhere between apologetic and determined. In that gesture, Kaela saw the acknowledgement of what they were about to do, set aside whatever had grown between them for the duration of combat. "Don't hold back," Elena mouthed, and Kaela nodded in response. "Wouldn't dream of it, little warrior," she replied, though she knew the human couldn't hear her across the distance. The preliminary rituals seemed to stretch forever: formal declarations, rule recitations, equipment inspections that found Elena carrying nothing more dangerous than a basic medical kit, and what appeared to be snack bars. Finally, the opponents took their positions at opposite ends of the arena, separated by 50 meters of combat space and the weight of galactic attention. "This is it," Kaela whispered to herself, activating her weapons and feeling the familiar surge of pre-combat focus. "Show them why you're the champion." The opening chime sounded, and both fighters began to move. Kaela opened with her signature technique, a series of plasma blade strikes designed to probe Elena's defenses while maintaining optimal positioning for follow-up attacks. It was textbook Zephyrian combat doctrine, executed with the precision that had made her legendary. Elena's response was pure chaos. Instead of defending, attacking, or even attempting to maintain proper combat distance, Elena began what could only be described as an elaborate routine of acrobatic movements that seemed to serve no tactical purpose whatsoever. She cartwheeled, spun, and bounded through the arena space like someone performing for an audience rather than fighting for a championship. "What is she doing?" Kaela muttered, adjusting her attack patterns to account for Elena's unpredictable movement. The answer became clear as the match progressed. Elena wasn't just moving randomly, she was learning. Each of Kaela's attacks taught her something new about Zephyrian combat techniques, and her seemingly chaotic responses were actually systematic tests of different approaches to countering them. "She's treating this like a real-time research project," Kaela realized with growing admiration. "She's not trying to beat me quickly, she's trying to understand me completely." The realization changed everything about Kaela's approach. Instead of trying to end the fight efficiently, she began to showcase the full range of her abilities, almost as if she were teaching rather than competing. Her plasma blade work became an exhibition of Zephyrian martial artistry, while her defensive techniques demonstrated the philosophical principles underlying her people's